Today, I'm so super excited to be with a fellow Aussie who is a former professional Australian bike rider, and he's also retired early due to injuries, and he did an MBA, and he's also started a business. And I know from bumping into him last year at an event with two other one Australian athlete, Calvi Watkins, and a former international English rugby player at the In Your Element Festival, that you are still doing extreme sports. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, look, I like to participate in and do all the things that I couldn't do when I was racing. So things like skiing, any kind of running I do now. I like to keep myself active. It's a good how to say, stress relief and endorphin release. So I keep myself busy with that kind of stuff. And as you know, I just did the crossing, the water bike crossing from Calvi to Monaco. I'm not sure if you can class that as an extreme sport, but yeah, I like to keep myself busy.
Oh, I would definitely say that's an extreme sport. As you know from our earlier conversation, Brian and I sailed there this summer, and we actually had a glimpse of two of the athletes training. So I'll send you the photo later. And, you know, as a sailor, you are not in control of the elements. So you never know what the wind's going to be like, for example, what the waves are like, what the current's doing. And, you know, when we were on our way back, we only had one window where we could sail back. And when the water can be like a washing machine. So did you experience any rough patches?
Well, I mean, I know that there was a lot of anticipation actually coming up to the date, because something like what we did, it can either be a wonderful experience if you have nice conditions, or it can be a horrible experience if you have really bad conditions. So we were completely at the element of the weather gods, basically. I think for me, it really sunk in. I was fortunate enough to come back from Calvi during the summer on a helicopter. And I sort of saw firsthand, you know, that it is, well, I didn't see it, but I could see via the satellite tracking equipment or whatever it is, that it's over 3 kilometers deep. And we saw schools of dolphins, we saw 2 whales. So it wasn't until then that I was like, okay, I'm going to be in the middle of this ocean on a water bike. And that was exciting. That was a bit, I think then it sunk in, it was a little bit daunting, but it was really exciting. And as far as the conditions are concerned, I mean, we had really, really rough conditions for the first 6 hours.
Wow.
You have to imagine it was better being on the bike than in the catamaran. The catamarans were really rough. People were really seasick. People actually had to be taken off the catamarans. So at the start, you were happier to be on the bike than on the catamaran, just to avoid that seasickness. And luckily, after about 8 hours, once we started to hit the early evening, it calmed down a little bit. And then through the night, it was much calmer. And then we were lucky enough from kind of midnight onwards to have perfect conditions.
Wow, you're blessed. I was praying for you all. Oh my God.
I was praying as well, don't worry.
Because I know how violent the elements can be. And I'm really curious to find out how you transitioned from the bike to the catamaran.
It was actually quite easy. We had a good support crew. Everyone had, each catamaran had a great support crew. And we would have two support crew. The rider would come to the back of the catamaran. The support crew would put a rope around the water bike to kind of hold it in tight to the catamaran.
Yeah.
And it was quite easy to step off, you know, stand on the platform of the water bike and then straight onto the catamaran.
Wow.
It was pretty easy. It was a little bit difficult, having said that. we had two different saddles.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was really rough, to take one seat post out and put the other one in was a little bit of a challenge, but we made
it. Right. And how many catamarans were there? One for each team?
Yeah, there was one for each team. Princess Charlene had her own catamaran. So that sort of gave her space, and we just changed accordingly. So whoever was on our team at the time, one of the three guys would just ride over to the Princess, and that's how we did our interchange for her.
Right. So did you all use the same bike, for example?
Yeah,
or?
everyone was on exactly the same bike. It was all identical. Some seat. That was the only difference.
Right. And what about the other team? So did you see them, for example, or because this ocean is so vast, were you exactly on the same line? Because I guess it's only one straight line.
Well, obviously during the day we could see them, and actually we were a long way behind at some stages.
Wow.
Especially at the start, we fell back a long way, and then we'd catch up, and then we'd fall back again, and so we could constantly see each other during the day. And then also each catamaran, each captain, each skipper would give us exact approximate distance. So they would tell us if we're catching up, slowing down, what speed we're going. So we had lots of information like that. And then obviously in the nights when it was dark, we could just see the lights.
Right.
So we knew where they were roughly, and we could just see them via the lights.
And did you have other support boats with you? Because I've worked on catamarans. That was our first job when we left Australia to this part of the world. It can be. Did you have another boat? Because you said some people had to leave the catamaran.
Yeah, so there was a medical boat, which was a yacht.
Okay.
And then there was the director's boats. And then there was one or two other yachts as well, but that was not for the competitors or the taking part. So each catamaran had so we had 3 on ours, the other team had 4, and then the Princess, she had her own. And it was quite challenging because there was not a whole lot of space once you counted everyone. And to rest and sleep was really difficult just because, you're hyped up and the water was. So at the start, I think everyone found that challenging, and probably after a few hours, I think once you just decided that it was, you just had to make the most of what you had, then it went easy.
Right.
It was definitely not luxury, put it that way.
I remember watching the first ever water bike challenge starting in Nice and then seeing everybody arrive back in Monaco. And I know the following year then, because it was a big challenge for most of the athletes, they changed it just to Monaco Harbour.
Yeah,
so
that was quite cool.
You did all 3, I think, haven't you?
I did the second one. So I did the Monaco Harbour one.
Right.
And obviously this last one that we've just done now. So,
Well, that would have been a huge difference.
Physically, yeah, huge difference. The other one was really cool because, we were all racing each other, and it was, you weren't so long on the water bike. So it was, you could say, more intense and shorter. This was really a completely different effort. It was, you were many things: lack of sleep, fatigue, hot conditions, rough conditions, the ability to get enough food into your body to be able to keep doing your hour stint every 3 hours. So there were many other elements in the mix other than just the ones that we had doing it in the harbour here.
Right. And how many hours, for example, or how long did you actually physically cycle for, each of you, during the rough seas?
Well, we were going off kind of a program where we would change on the hour each hour.
Okay.
So I made a small mistake in one of my first stints. I did an hour and a half.
Wow.
And then we settled back into that rhythm of every hour on the hour we changed. So we would do 1 hour each, 3 hours recovery. And I think that worked really well. 1 hour was, I can tell you, after 1 hour, you don't really want to do much more. So that gave you sort of, the hour after that effort to eat some food. And then you could really switch off and try and relax and recover the second hour. And then the third hour, you had to start preparing to get ready and go again.
Wow. And in your training, what was the longest length of time that you cycled for on the water?
To be honest with you, the approach that I took leading into it was more to be ready mentally. I knew that it was something, although I've done grand tours and really hard long bike races, Milan-San Remo and the classics, the monuments, I knew that sleep deprivation, it was in conditions that we couldn't control. That would be the mental side of things would be the hardest. So obviously, I'm not a professional athlete anymore. I have other things to do. So I had to kind of work my training around all of my other life commitments. So I tried to do a lot of double sessions, and even some weekends leading up to it, I would do 3 sessions in a day, but just shorter sessions. So maybe 3 1-hour sessions or 3 1.5-hour sessions, just to try and get the body used to that repeating of exercise. Obviously, I would have liked to have been able to have more time to prepare and put more hours in. But at the end of the day, what I did was sufficient. And like I said, I think at the end of the day, it was more about mental resilience than the physical part.
And did you have a coach to help you through the mental resilience and talk you what your self-talk should be, for example?
No, I think from 25 years high-level cycling, I had a lot of that under control. So no, I just use the tools that I've developed over the last 20 years, and with my training leading into it, and especially on the day, and I just went with that.
Did all the both teams train together, or you're doing your own training? Yeah,
no, we did do a little bit together, each team together as well. It was a little bit mix and match. We tried to go together as much as possible. I know with Brandon, one of my teammates, I did a lot of riding with on the water bike and on the road bike.
Right.
So that was good to be able, and also with Mats, I did a few rides also on the water bike with Princess Charlene. So she put a lot of effort, a lot of as well.
Yeah.
So it was good to be able to try.
Well, that must have been sensational to train with the princess and living in Monaco, Princess Charlene.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously came from high-level sport as well.
Yeah.
She was an Olympic swimmer, so she understands how to build up the training volume and the load for an event, and how to taper. And so, I think that she had pretty much everything under control for her own preparation.
That's fantastic. And this was all done to raise money for the Princess Charity to become aware of safety on the water. Yeah,
and that was, I think, I don't want to say unfortunately, but the focus came that it was a bit of a race between the teams, and actually it was not really. It was to raise awareness for her foundation and their causes and what they're trying to achieve. Obviously, when you have 2 teams and you have competitive people, naturally it becomes a little bit competitive.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't expect athletes.
Of course, when you have guys like Matt Bennett and the princesses competed in Olympic level before, and I mean the other guys as well. We have high-level handball players and Olympic gymnasts. So
Yeah,
those kind of personalities are definitely going to show themselves.
that's fantastic. And what about, because Gareth Wittstock, Princess Charlene's brother, was the team leader of the opposition. Was
Yeah.
there a lot of sibling rivalry as well?
I think at the start there might have been a little bit of tension actually, because he went out pretty hard. Not tension. I'm talking, sibling kind of rivalry.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I think that they, it was Gareth's idea from the start. He was very proud of the whole thing. He did a wonderful job, as did the whole foundation. I mean,
Yeah.
I spoke to him a year before it happens. He told me.
I think that's what the whole world thought.
Yeah, but it was such a wonderful initiative, a wonderful event.
Yeah.
And I really say congratulations to the foundation. They organised a wonderful event. And in the end of the day, I think that they raised funds. So that was the point of the whole process. So
Oh yeah.
I was very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I'll put the link to the foundation so people have more public awareness when we post this talk.
Sure.
And would you like to tell our audience what got you into cyclists and an incredible athlete in the beginning? If you want to share a bit about your background.
I mean, as an Australian, a young Australian, we are all into sport. And so I grew up with all different sports, and I was a very energetic, let's say, borderline hyperactive child. You can ask my mum. And when I was young, when I was 9, my mum took me to the bike club. I got second in my first race. I won my second race, and then I was really hooked. I watched the Tour de France on television, and I knew from a very young age that I really wanted to be a professional cyclist.
Wow.
I had one of my best friends. He was a bit older than me and grew up in the same town, Baden Cook. He also was a resident of Monaco, and he came to Europe a few years earlier than me. So that was good for a younger guy to see someone do it, in front of him. That gave me confidence. And so as soon as I finished school, I think I was 17 or 18, I came to France, which was fairly daunting, coming to a country you've never been to. I hadn't been to Europe. I didn't speak French. Wow. I arrived with a suitcase, and I was just aware that someone would pick me up from Charles de Gaulle. Right.
So obviously did you get picked up by, I know in Australia, there's like watchdogs that go around the schools and look out for athletes. Did you get handpicked that way, or how did you start the professional?
Well, I was always in the Victorian and Australian Institute of Sports.
Okay.
It's like a Victorian Institute of Sport is a satellite for the Australian Institute of Sports. Right. I was Australian champion at a young age, so it was a natural progression to move to Europe. And at that time, there was a few different ways to do it, either with the Australian national team or with joining one of the clubs in Europe, whether it be Italy, Belgium, or France. And I was advised to join a French club, and the French club were happy enough with my results as a junior. So that's what happened. And then, I kind of immersed myself into the French culture. I learnt the language, and looking back now, I don't know how I did it, because it's looking back, I feel like it was much harder. But at the time, I was just happy to be following my dream. So I don't know how I did it, but I managed. If that makes sense.
And was there a big difference in your training, for example, when you came over to this part of the world?
Well, the training didn't change a whole lot. The racing was what was the biggest jump, because you go from racing juniors in Australia. So that's under 19, so 17 and 18-year-olds, to then racing men.
Wow.
And then is much more, so 20 to up to 200 kilometers. So it's a big jump. It was a big character building exercise, especially those first few years. You're very lonely. You miss your family and your friends, and it's not like today where we have WhatsApp and 4G phones with apps and FaceTime. It was a matter of speaking to the family once a week on the phone, checking the email every week as well, and I mean, it was a simple life.
Right. And did your parents cycle, or were they sporty, or have you got brothers and sisters?
My mum's side of the family was into cycling. So my mum's brother was a really good cyclist. And I think is what I would say gave my mum the idea to take me to the bike club.
Great. And what advice would you give to any young person who would like to be a professional cyclist?
I think depending on your age, you need to firstly, as a young, enjoy your sports. So that means mix it up a little bit. Don't be focused so much on road cycling. Try some BMX, try some mountain biking or some track cycling. Even do other sports. I think that I was once from sort of 12 onwards, I was very fixated on my bike. That was probably a good thing, but at the same time, it might have been helpful to do some other things as well. I'm not sure. But I think the main thing is to really enjoy it at the start, and also probably focus a bit more on your studies than I did. But, as a young person, you can't really be told. And otherwise, I think the main thing is to keep an open mind, enjoy it. Sport, I think, can be something that even if we don't pursue professional careers, I think it's really helpful for development in young people anyway. Like I said, I'm not competing now, but I still try and keep active. I think it has many benefits, and I would definitely recommend all young kids to find some kind of sport that they like, because it gives characteristics and lessons that we can't learn at school. Right.
And did you do a lot of cross training when you were a professional bike rider?
In different stages of the year, yeah. I think once you do turn professional, the workload that you have to do on the bike is so much that you only really have enough time and energy for some core training, some specific gym work, and it's more maintenance than anything else. Generally speaking, we would do more cross training and gym work in the winter months. So through November, December, a little bit in January, and then the rest of the season, it would be mainly focused on work on the bike and, like I say, ab work.
Right. I know from Tiffany Cromwell, because she spoke at one of our ladies' lunch, and I've consequently interviewed her, that, even though you're part of a team, you're not with the team members all the time. I don't know if this was your case. So you had to have that inner drive to get out of bed. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I never had that problem. I never had a motivation problem to go out training. I was someone who I was the opposite. I usually often did too much.
Yeah, I think Tiffany was the same. She definitely didn't have a problem. I'm just thinking, was it easy for you or not?
Yeah, some people, we all have different personalities, and I think some professional athletes, because the sport at that level is so difficult, it takes a huge workload to be able to have the level to be competitive. And I think it's even at some stages with myself, I'd probably lost sight of why I was doing it. The training, that is. Obviously, it was to go to the race and perform well, but I think you probably do sometimes too much training that's not beneficial. And obviously, we're all different, but I found myself, it was good to have a coach that I really trusted, who would sometimes say to me, "Okay, look, back it off a little bit. You've done enough. It's time to rest a little bit now for the big races," and really have someone watching over like that.
Yeah, having worked with many athletes myself and elite athletes, I know rest is so important for the recovery of muscles, you know, in different phases of your training, so that you can function at your optimal best. And did you have a nutritionist coach? Like, you know, the world now is so different, I'm sure, from when you started out, because there seems to be like about 10 different coaches attached to many athletic teams.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. Like I say, I was identified at a young age to be in programs where you are really guided and you have access to resources that's it's for the athletes that the Australian Institute of Sport would consider possibilities to represent their country. So through that, from a young age, I had lots of education into gym training, nutrition, recovery, things like that. And then as you evolve as a rider and you go through the amateurs and you turn professional, and each different team has their own kind of, you know, I rode for Saxo Bank, which is a Dutch team, Belkin, which turned into, Belkin, which it was previously Rubberbank and now it's Lotto Jumbo. So they're a Dutch team. And then finally I Am Cycling. And I'd also had stints with Italian teams as well. So you pick up each time the different philosophies of that nation,
Right.
and the different professionals that work in there, those osteopaths, dietitians, and I think at the end of the day, there's no one kind of fit for everyone. You have to really try some different things and then work out what works best for you. And even now, I think I'm still learning a little bit about nutrition and things like that. And I probably made some mistakes during my career. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. But I really think now it must be difficult. There's so many different philosophies, mentalities, different diets and training methods out there. But you really just have to find what works for your body and what fits with you and go with that.
And I guess sometimes, you know, some people haven't got the confidence to stand up to coaches and say, if they get recommended to go on a particular diet, for instance, they want to change it, or they want to go for a run in the morning and you get advised otherwise. It's all about listening within.
I think part of being a good coach is also being able to work with different people. And, you know, part of good coaching is tailoring things for different athletes. So if someone comes to you and you're working with them and they throw you an idea, I think that it's important to work around that. And like I said just before, there isn't a one fit for everyone. From what I've seen in the past and the coaches that I work with, the one who listened to the athlete and tailored the program and the training around them and their personalities, they were the more successful coaches.
Brilliant. Would you ever consider being a coach?
You know, I was, after my accident and when I retired, I was helping out there was a friend of our family in Australia and some young riders in Australia. So I was passing some of the knowledge onto those guys, some of the younger riders. And I think what happened through when I started to do the studies, it became a little bit difficult to keep in touch with different time zones and you know, the guys' everyday needs. I did get a lot of satisfaction out of giving something back and some knowledge, because at the end of the day, I was there once as well. I was a young rider, sort of like a sponge wanting knowledge. So it was a meaningful thing to do for me. But I think with now the way my life is and the different commitments that I have, it wasn't sustainable to keep coaching the guys.
Right. And what would you say was your most challenging bike race, or which race did you enjoy the most?
That's a difficult question. I mean, obviously to do a grand tour, whether it be the Tour, the Giro or the Vuelta, it's extremely hard because it's 3 weeks. You know, you can come across extreme heat, snow, wind and rain. You know, I did I did some stages in the Tour and the Tour of Spain and the Tour of Italy where we're in snow.
Wow.
And when you get that cold and you're on the bike, it's not nice at all. Especially, you know, if you're only halfway through and you have 10 more stages to go. And then, you know, some races, some of the one-day classics are also extremely difficult. But if it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
Exactly.
So, you also have extreme satisfaction once you get through hard mentally situations like difficult moments in grand tours or hard moments in the classics. It's always something that's you have great. Once you finish and you get through it, the satisfaction is really worth it.
Right. And because you mentioned you work with different countries, obviously different cultures, was there one culture you preferred working with, or, you know, differently?
Yeah, I mean, they're all different a little bit. You know, the Italians are more laid back. The French, they have their own philosophy as well. I know that in Saxo Bank, I had a really, really good time. I felt like the Danish guys and Danish guys and Australian guys kind of fit in really well. And Bjarne Riis created a really, really nice atmosphere there. There was different nationalities involved. It wasn't a dominance, just Belgian or French or Italian. So that was a really nice experience to ride for Bjarne and Saxo Bank. But I can't really say that there was one particular nation or country that I preferred.
Yeah, because we're living in a multicultural world now. Even in Monaco, there's so many different cultures there. Yeah. And can you tell the listeners about any accidents or how you used to recover from accidents, and what was your worst injury? And obviously you retired because of injuries.
I mean, as a rider, obviously it's very dangerous sports. There's often, you know, you can do one season without crashing, and then you can do some seasons times. It's all, you just never know. I had my first really, really bad accidents. It was in a race in 2008. I crashed into a wall in a descent and broke my leg, my back, and my collarbone. So the tibia and fibula. And that was operated on. There is still a metal rod in my leg there. It goes from the knee down to the ankle. That was at a really, probably the worst time, because I was just about to turn professional. So to have that kind of was not ideal timing. So that professional contract fell through, and you know, it took another year to do rehab and then win more races, and finally the opportunity with Saxo Bank came through. That was a very strenuous rehab, because, you know, breaking a leg, you lose all the muscle. You have to build it from scratch, the memory, and activate it, and that was difficult. And then obviously the last one was, I was hit by a car training here in near Menton in 2016. And that one there was probably more serious. I broke, pretty much everything above the waist. So I had I had a bit over 3 weeks in reanimation, and then 3 more weeks in a specialist sport hospital near Biarritz. And I didn't really recover from that one well enough to continue my career. So that was also a long rehabilitation phase. But in the end, I managed to get myself pretty much normal, if I can say that.
Whatever normal is.
Whatever normal is, yeah. I look normal, but let's put it that way. But I always was going to miss 20 or 30% on the bike. So I decided to stop instead and pursue other goals. And then that's what's led me to where I'm at now.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that you're absolutely amazing, incredible to, at such a young age, to have so many broken bones in your legs and your spine, and then to go on and have an amazing career. And then just mentally, I know it must be so frustrating to have to be a couch potato and do all the energy work and the rehabilitation to get back on track again. You know, a lot of people don't survive that. They can't get out their head, you know, and the woe is me, and it would have been so easy to slip into depression. Did you have any mental talk that you used to give yourself that you're willing to share?
No, of course. I think that for both rehabs, after both accidents, I just simply didn't see a choice. There wasn't. I don't feel like it today. I definitely wanted to get my career back on track, and there was never I was never saying in the morning, oh, should I do this or should I not? It was just I just did it, because at the end of the day, it's for your own benefits, and then also, you don't want to let the people down who have always supported you as well.
Yeah.
So, plus, it was too early in my career, both accidents, to really just give up.
Wow.
Having said that, after the second one, I know that, once I finally did decide to retire, so I had, a year of heavy rehabilitation, and in one way that was, I don't want to say good, but it was more like a bit of a soft landing. Because I could focus on that so much, it kind of disguised the fact that I might have had to retire. It was really, really difficult once I did decide to stop, because life as I knew it was not going to be the same anymore. And that's when it really sunk in that I was very fortunate to be able to get paid as a job to do something that I did for fun as a young boy. I think, then that really sinks in how lucky you actually are. And I don't think a lot of the sportsmen and women out there actually understand that until they retire. Because it's a wonderful lifestyle. Obviously there is really, really hard times, in races, and if you're injured or if you get sick, but at the end of the day, you're doing what you love and you're in control of it.
That's wonderful.
It was really difficult, actual retirement age, and I had once, but then once I enrolled in the MBA, I had something else to focus on, and that was really good for me to set new goals. I'm someone who always goals. My life has always been about constant goal making. Even when the year finishes, the season stops, you start thinking about the next goals for the next year. And I'm still like that now. So the MBA was great for me. It was different challenges and different goals. And I think that really, really helped me with the retirement. Fantastic. And what are you doing now? You hinted that you're starting a new business when we chatted last week. Yeah, I had a few different ideas going into the university. you need to think of something that you really want to do that's meaningful to you for a long time. You know, I still have many work years ahead of me, you know, things I need to do. So I had an interest in finance. I had an interest, obviously, in sport and in athletes. And I decided to kind of go down the sports management path. I'm doing that in collaboration with a family office, a multi-family office. So we're working closely together. I have my day-to-day things there, and then they're also supporting me on this business and this venture. What I'm trying to, what I hope will grow rapidly over the next 5 years. So the idea is to really support athletes in not just the contracts and their sponsorship agreements, but the other 300 degrees of their life as well, and also post-career. I think athletes, they seem to be forgotten very quickly once they decide to stop, and I think that sports don't really put enough emphasis on that transition period, and that's why you see so much depression in sports. Yeah, sportsmen that retire. Because, you know, they feel that their value is as a sportsman and what they used to do. And I feel like that's something that needs to be improved. So amongst other things is to try and improve the general management experience for athletes.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you hit the nail on the head, because it's a definite need. And having worked with so many elite athletes, my heart used to be bleeding for them, because one minute they're in the limelight and everybody adores them and you hear their names and see them, and then next minute they're gone, they're forgotten. So
yeah, and unfortunately, there's only a small number that really have a whole lot of things to choose from. You know, they're generally speaking, professional or Olympic or very high level athletes. They are people who have been involved in a sport from a very young age, because let's face it, you know, you're not picking up a sport at 20 years old and then becoming a professional at that sport. You know, Formula motorsport, go-karts from 8. Skiers also, a very young age. It's very rare for a cyclist to start any later than 15. So they're people who immerse themselves into that sport, and you kind of have to, because it's that challenging. Yeah. And then to stop, you know, you find yourself not knowing what to do, and sometimes it's a hard one, because sometimes not having the skills, but at the same time, as an athlete, you develop skills that you can't learn in any university or in any book. So some certainly manage it better than others, but still, I think it's a daunting situation for any athlete to be in.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, because I like the word immerse that you used. You immerse your body and soul, your whole heart, 100%. And that's your way of being and living and thinking and breathing. You know, you are that sport. And then to just go from being 100%, because, you know, it is your life, it is your focus, it is your dream. And you've got the support of all your fans and family and everybody barracking behind you, and then, you know, such an abrupt end. And I think, well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed and my toes and my whole heart, because I know you are such a determined young man. You're focused, and you are an extremist, and you're very humble at the same time. And I know you're going to put your whole heart into this. And I know you're going to help so many athletes around the world. So on that note, I want to wish you very, very, very good success with your future endeavors.
Beverly, thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure.